particularly on this.
Everybody ready?
Is that that railroad?
Well, good afternoon. We'll call this meeting of the Planning Commission to order on this Wednesday, September 27th. May we have a roll call?
Commissioner Gray,
Here.
Commissioner Godfrey,
Here?
Commissioner Hughes,
Here.
Commissioner Springer,
Here.
Commissioner Morse,
Here.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Here.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is the approval of the minutes. I wanted to note that the spelling correction to Commissioner Springer has been made. Is there any, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Madam Chairman, I make a motion that the minutes be approved as presented.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and properly seconded to approve the minutes of August 23rd, and that's 2023. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The motion has carried. Next on our agenda is correspondence. Has any correspondence been received?
No correspondence.
Thank you. Next on our agenda, additions and deletions to the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions?
No additions, no deletions.
Thank you. Next up is a public hearing regarding and deliberations 6A, zoning map amendment R1-23. We'll now open this public hearing, and we'll ask if there's a staff report.
So this item is being brought before you today by staff. Staff has recently been approached by a group out of the Chicago area named Upholdings LLC with interest in developing permanent supportive housing within the city. They've looked at a handful of different sites, and they've identified the area that is basically the subject of this rezoning application as being ideal for what they're looking to do. This area is basically along Michigan Avenue, bounded by Green Street and Yuba Street. The majority of the properties there right now are currently zoned either MFR high density multiple family or T3 neighborhood commercial district. The purpose of this rezoning of this area to T4 downtown commercial is to open up some additional opportunities for the property when it comes to density and setback requirements. The T4 district does not have any density limits for residential developments, and it also doesn't have any setback requirements from either the fronts, rears, or side lot lines. So those items are really, really helpful to this developer and what they're looking to do. What staff has also tried to do with this is tie some of the surrounding properties that aren't necessarily a part of Upholdings' interest, but they do create some continued adjacent area, so it basically ties the T4 district where it exists right now out eastward. And so that's why you see there's 24 properties which are the subject of this request. I think Upholdings is interested in roughly 10 or 12 of the properties. Those other ones, like we said, we looked at, the majority of them are vacant. A few of them have commercial uses on them right now. I believe one has a multiple family use and one has a single family use. And so in looking at the current uses, the number of vacant properties and the proximity of other T4 properties to this area, staff felt it made sense to try and tie as many of these properties to the existing T4 as possible. If commissioners have any questions, I'll go ahead and try to answer them.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. Was the Upholdings any representative here today, or did they state that they were coming?
So they, I don't believe they're here today. The city is the applicant for this rezoning application. The only reason we really mentioned their development is just because that was sort of the impetus for what led us to seek this rezoning request. So just wanted to make sure that you had some context for why this was being brought before you.
Thank you for that. Are there any public comments at this time? Any public comments? Hearing none, I'll move to the commissioners. Are there any commissioner comments?
I just had a question about the, sorry.
I'm sorry. Commissioner Godfrey, and then I'll go to Commissioner O'Donnell.
Can you give us an idea of what the future use of this area, subject after it's rezoned?
So the future uses in this area, if this were to be rezoned, it'll be, all of these properties would be T4 downtown commercial. What that basically includes is a mix of commercial and residential uses. Multiple family is one of the uses without any density limits. The commercial uses are going to be what you typically would see in a downtown area, so pretty much most forms of retail, personal service establishments, and then of course mixed use establishments. They're going to be a mix of housing and commercial. So a lot of what you're seeing here is already zone T3, which basically provides for those uses. But again, going to T4 relieves these properties of those density restrictions for residential. And then again, in terms of talking about physical development, relieves these properties of setback requirements. And so that's the primary difference that you'll see going from T3 to T4. Some of the properties right now are multiple family residential, which is exactly what it sounds like. They're zoned for multiple family. They will still be permitted, obviously, to construct multiple family with this zoning, but of course it just opens them up to more of those downtown type uses.
Thank you.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Similar to what Commissioner Godfrey was talking about, is there, so would it be some businesses that just, that would build that, maybe a grocery store, shop, or a specialty shop, and then housing, kind of like a small neighborhood?
So all of those options are open to all of these properties. They could, a developer could establish, like you said, just a grocery store by itself. It could establish it as part of a mixed-use development, which also would include some form of housing. It would just depend on what a specific property owner or developer would look to do with that property. But this rezoning, like I said, would really open these up to these kinds of options too. So.
Okay, I've seen other places where like you have apartments and then retail on the lower level, things like that. So it's similar to that too.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, so what you typically think of as like a downtown type development, that's exactly what this would be. So, so yeah, any kind of a mixed use that would have, like you said, retail on the bottom floor. Yep.
One other thing, environmental wise, I know the property kind of across the street from there was brownfield. Would that be affecting any further development in that area too?
So it won't impact the area that Upholdings is looking at right now. Where they're looking is across the street, so to the south of Michigan Avenue. That's their area of interest. I believe the property that's identified as brownfield, I think, is north of Michigan. The impact that might have on future development, we would have to look into further. But in terms of the immediate term right now, that's not included in what Upholdings is looking at. So we would just have to look at what sorts of building requirements or state requirements there might be for redevelopment of a property that might have some contamination in it. So.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Godfrey?
Has the city seen any proposals from Upholdings LLC for low-income housing in this area? I see that they want it redeveloped and rezoned, but have you seen any backup material that would cause the city to go ahead with this?
Yes, we have been working with them on site plans. The last site plan that they were having difficulty was a lower-rise building. What they're coming back to the city with, if this passes, is a 3-story building that would be at the corner of Michigan Avenue and Yuba, and then have parking behind, other amenities such as outdoor space for the residents, bike parking, as well as a few car parking spaces. We do not require parking in a T4 zone. However, they will have a minimal amount of parking that they'll want to have for support services that come in and some of the residents. So they will have a number of parking as well.
This is a nice request to help us develop that corridor into the city of Battle Creek.
I agree. Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments? Right. I will entertain a motion on this particular agenda item.
I just want to compliment you on all the hard work that you guys put together. I think is a great idea.
Thank you.
Is there a motion?
Oh, yeah, I'd like to approve the motion for the,
Second.
Motion.
You have to move.
I'd like to move this, move the motion to move ahead with this project. I don't know what the number is. Is there a number on it?
It's the agenda item. Look at the agenda.
Oh, the agenda item, yep.
So it's been moved to approve the zoning map amendment number R1-23. And it's been supported by Commissioner Morris. Is there any further discussion? Can we get a vote?
Commissioner Gray,
Yes.
Commissioner Morris,
Yes.
Commissioner Springer,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Donnell,
Yes.
Commissioner Godfrey.
Yes.
Motion has carried unanimously. Now we're moving on to public hearing 6B. Staff, when you're ready.
Thank you. This is kind of a phase 2 to the update that you had back in May. What had occurred between then and now is we've had several situations where we have either gotten requests from city council, from the community member, or we've seen things along the way that we recommend changing to be more user-friendly for the community, for business and residential development. I would like to go through, in doing that, we also took advantage of the opportunity to fix a lot of corrections. Some of our code language was not particularly clear. So what I'm going to do is I would like to go through each chapter very briefly and explain to you what the substantive changes are, and then allow you the opportunity, if you have any questions on those changes or any of the corrective or grammatical errors that we corrected, then I'll be able to answer as you go. So we're kind of doing it in a systematic way. Yes.
Commissioner Godfrey?
As you go through chapters, will then we approve it by chapter?
I think what would be, you could do it that way, or you could bring up anything that you have concerns about and talk about it at that time, and then after they've all been reviewed, then you would make a motion to say, I make a motion to amend this part of the proposed ordinance, and then go through the voting process that way. Like you'd vote to recommend approval of the ordinance, and then you would do your amendments. Does that seem to be a good way to go about it, or would you prefer doing it as we go?
I'm open to hear other suggestions. Is there agreement around each chapter or at the end, and then include the amendments in that one motion? Commissioner Springer?
What would happen if we vote in the amendments today, not per chapter, but as a group, and then we did a breakout session with the Planning Commission, and then we make changes or corrections or additions then and bring them back?
And if that's what you choose to do, that would help, but we're really, some of the changes in here are time sensitive because of development projects that would need these changes to move forward for funding. So we'd prefer to make any corrections that you feel are necessary tonight, recommend those to move forward. But if there's a lot of changes, we can figure out a way to come back with those and just make your recommendation for what you think can go forward.
My suggestion was to approve your amendments tonight as written. And if we have changes later, to get together and make the change at a
Absolutely.
later date.
Absolutely.
Tonight to approve them.
Perfect. That would be great.
I would support that as well.
Well,
Great.
So I've heard a couple of suggestions. Could we simply also, just ones that we don't have any hesitations or questions about, group those and approve those?
Absolutely.
And then those that have some outstanding questions or possible amendments to them, pull those out and work on those individually.
Perfect.
If commissioners know what numbers those are, we can approve all of them but those, and then go through those one at a time, perhaps. So that's just another thought, but it looks like you're wanting to make a motion to approve them as, but they have not been presented yet? So are we waiting for the report?
It was just a discussion.
Just a suggestion,
And-
okay.
And the suggestion is because of the changes that were made, I had several more questions that came up that weren't addressed. So maybe if we did that at a separate time in a session with the planning commission, and
Okay, because it seemed, so noted, I'll go to Commissioner Godfrey.
The reason that I asked the question about voting on it by chapter is we're going to get a briefing by staff on each chapter. And that would give us an opportunity to have an explanation of the chapter, and at that time, we could approve it or disapprove it. If there are actions within that, then we could have those questions asked and answered by staff, and we could check them off as we move down the roll.
Yeah. So I'm hearing a couple of different versions of doing this. Is there consensus on which one the commissioners would like to utilize? I think Commissioner Morris agreed with the approach of Commissioner Springer. Are there other, I'm listening for Commissioner Patrick, Commissioner Hughes? Do you have a preference on either one of these?
No, whatever we want to come up with. No preference.
All right. And then, hearing that, I'll just look to the staff regarding these chapters to see if they have any suggestions, to council, to see if they have any suggestions on how to proceed. Yeah.
So you're presented with zoning ordinance amendment A2.
Yes.
You've discussed a couple different ways of how you want to work through those amendments. I think what staff was anticipating doing was presenting their report by chapter. I'm not sure if they were going to pause for each chapter to take questions or field questions, but it is organized through the, is it nine chapters we have to go through this afternoon. So that would at least break it up. That seems reasonable to me, but you're the body that has to decide how you want to do that.
Right.
I think, that there's a framework there within which it seems fairly straightforward to follow.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
Yep.
Then we will go with that original thought as far as you'll go through each one and we'll approve them as we go. And people will be able to ask questions on each one as we go.
Great. Okay, we will start with Chapter 1230. This chapter basically includes all of our definitions. Basically, the substantive changes that we've made are, we did add a definition for event center. Right now, we've had a lot of interest in reuse of religious institutions. Most of them are either located in a T3 zone or a residential district. They are, as far as religious institutions, the nature of those are very minimal as far as the impact on the neighborhoods, as far as traffic. There's traffic at different times, but the main, whatever day their services are on, are the most traffic that they have, and those are expected, and kind of the neighborhood knows when those days are, so it's something that's kind of a consistent schedule for the most part. A lot of interest has been in purchasing these buildings and using them more for an event center. And some of the uses that are proposing would include 200 or more occupancy that people for the general community would be coming in and out for events. Staff, that's not allowed in those districts right now, and there's been some question of whether it is or isn't, and it's clearly not, but we don't really have anything in other districts to show where it is allowed. We do have arena, and that, of course, it would be allowed in that district. So we made a definition that kind of encompassed what some of these uses are desired to have, and we're putting them in districts such as B1, B2, T4, and T5 that are more conducive to a traffic of that nature for 200 or more people. That was, again, added as a definition as a beginning point of adding it as a use in those 4 districts that we'll talk about later. So that is really the main change there. We do have some text amendments as that was added. The numbering of all the ordinance number or definition numbers will be changed on the way down. So with that, were there any of the edits that were more corrective or informational, clarifying in nature that you have questions on?
Any questions from the commissioners?
So, in this section 230, we're not addressing anything else tonight.
No, it's basically the only thing that's adding to the code, to how we do things, is a new definition, and that will be located in, again, in the further sections or chapters that we'll be talking about.
So anything else in chapter 1230 we're not talking about tonight?
Did you hear him?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
So are we voting on it?
Sure.
Based on our discussions, then, I would make a motion that we approve Chapter 1230 with the changes that have been presented.
I second that.
It's been moved by Commissioner Godfrey, seconded by Commissioner Hughes. Is there any further discussion to approve Chapter 1230 as presented? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it unanimously. Staff?
Thank you. We'll go on to Chapter 40, zoning districts and maps. Chapter 40 basically has changed a lot of, there's a lot of amendments made to compensate for the changes that we're proposing in Chapter 1251 that we'll talk about later. They're the only changes as far as where uses are allowed and added that will be different from how we review the code now. We are requesting or proposing that transitional and supportive homes with occupants 1 through 6 be added to T4 districts. That is the district that the proposed development is going in, and staff feels that this was an oversight in not having it in the first place in the T4. We are also talking about, or proposing to have transitional and supportive housing for more than 6 occupants to the T district as a use by right. And then we also have event center, that the new definition, we are proposing that that be included in B1, B2, T4, and T5 districts as a use by right.
All right.
And then the last one is, we have a definition for private clubs, but when we were working with people for uses that would be allowed or that would be appropriate for the reuse of the religious institutions, private club, we felt was a very good use and kind of a in-between event club and a private club. That would be a much less intense use. And we did add that use as a use by right to B1, B2, T3, T4, and T5. And those are the changes for 1240. These changes will also be reflected in the table in Chapter 1240 that you have in your packet.
Are there any questions regarding Chapter 1240? Commissioner Godfrey?
And then there have been a lot of corrections made on numbering and errors,
Yes.
errors and things like that, that would automatically be cleaned up with approval.
Correct. And some of the error changes that look like they're really big changes, but they're just moving. In error, we put we put the transitional and supportive homes in an accessory use. They're not, as defined in our code, they're not a use that's accessory to anything. They are a use. So in the accessory category, they were listed as either permitted by right or permitted by special use permit. Those are just moved up into the permitted by right category and special use permit category. So there was no change in how we look at them. We just took them out of the accessory use because they are not really accessory, and that can be confusing.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion to approve Chapter 1240.
I'll make the motion.
It's been moved by Commissioner Morris. Is there a second?
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Godfrey. Any additional questions, concerns? All right. Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously. Chapter 1240 has been approved as presented. Moving on to Chapter 1241.
Chapter 1241 was entirely grammatical corrections based on changes that were made or proposed for the other sections of the code. There were a couple typos where there were uppercase letters that were referenced and they needed to be lowercase letters. Other than that, there was nothing substantially done to change how that code is used, or that chapter.
Any questions for the staff?
I have a question. I don't seem to have that chapter 1241. Mine goes 1240 to 1250.
Agreed.
Yes, it does.
So you're missing
No,
1241.
It's missing as well.
All right, let me,
Isn't it?
Well, it's kind of at the bottom, but of page 22.
What page is that?
No, well, it's just referring to page 58. I'm sorry, I was looking down here.
58.
But it's kind of inclusive of 1250. It's just a footnote, so it's not.
let me pull it up. I can talk down through it briefly. I apologize.
Is that what you're referring to, or is it
Yes,
something else?
yes, that should have been in your packet, even though there were no substantial changes. It was not intended to be
What is it?
Well, I have page 58, but it's just referring to it in footnotes. It's not actually the chapter with markups.
What's it say?
58.
9, okay.
Is it possible for you to get some copies of that chapter, and then we'll move on to the next one and come back to it? We recommend that Mr. Sullivan get copies, hard copies of that printed for us, and we move on to the next one when we come back to it, so at least you have something in front of you that you can see. Would that be helpful? All right,
That would be fine.
we will do that.
Then we will hold on that vote.
Oh, we should have
We can
1250 in there, just 1241. Yeah,
Yes, you could.
all right. And you do have 1250 in there, correct?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
All right, we'll go on to 1250 and come back to that to save time. So Chapter 1250 is the form-based code district, and the last modification we did to the text amendments had several changes that were less restrictive for development in this district. Right now, we are, it requires that no front yard parking be, or side yard parking be developed in the T3, T4, and T5 districts. And under several circumstances where we have future development in T4 and maybe T3, there are circumstances where some surface parking is necessary. So what the change added here is giving Planning and Zoning Administrator Sullivan the ability to waive the front parking and side parking where one of these circumstances arise, but also require them to provide screening through landscaping and a 4-foot-high ornamental fence, typical to what you would see in a downtown, to divide those two uses. And that it does not create any serious infringement on pedestrian circulation into those properties. So if they have a clear entry that works well for pedestrians, and then an area that they can connect to that entry through the parking area, then he would have the ability to approve that parking. It's just, in looking at it, in reality, it would be nice to not have any front yard or rear yard parking, but there are circumstances where it would be needed for whatever use is developed in those areas. One of the things that I've experienced through the process of downtown or high-density development, those requirements were in place, and they become problematic when reality, if you have a commercial business where the parking is in the back, a lot of times people will park their car on the side of the road where it's not legal to run in and make a quick purchase or drop off, and then you have other issues that it's makes with where you could approve some surface parking that would eliminate that problem. So those are the things that we hoped it would alleviate.
Thank you. Commissioner Godfrey?
Are there other issues in 1250 besides this particular
That
issue
is,
that you want to bring to our attention?
that is one that we missed. We feel like we covered all the other ones. Not to say that 2 years down the road, as these properties develop more, that we might want to tweak it more. But we feel that the architectural standards and setbacks and things of that nature are flexible enough and provide the planning and zoning administrator to address unique situations, to waive some of these with standards for the waiver, that we feel like it provides the flexibility needed.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
If that's the case, Madam Chairman, I will make a motion that Chapter 1250 be approved as presented.
Is there support?
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Godfrey and supported by Commissioner Hughes. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Chapter 1251, which we have added and is now on the website as well. So I will.
Yes, okay. 1251 has quite a few amendments that have come up through our process of reviewing different properties. One of the main one that really shows a lot of changes, our community garden requirement. We have had interest to have a community garden in some of the neighborhoods that do not have properties readily available that are vacant, that are 750, up to 750 square feet. Staff is recommending reducing that size to 5,000 square feet. That would allow more neighborhoods to have community gardens. We feel that the difference in the size is not going to be detrimental to the neighborhood, but it will allow most neighborhoods to do something like this. And we feel it's been a great opportunity for the neighborhoods to have community gardens like this. We also have an existing community garden in the community that has gotten some publicity and has been very successful. And that particular development or community garden unknowingly was selling a limited number of packaged foods with their produce, and right now our code explicitly does not allow that. And we feel that it's been a really good opportunity for the neighborhood. It provides a service. It's not really going against the intent of what the community garden is. And we also feel that any community garden that is 2 acres or more would definitely be able to handle that and not be a burden to the surrounding neighbors. You know, a smaller property probably wouldn't be conducive to that, so it probably wouldn't be a problem not allowing it, but we feel with the larger property, it really provides an additional service to the community. This property owner also had discussed with us that they would like to someday, not right away, but have one of their accessory buildings large enough to have community lessons, activities having to do with the community garden, preparing food, things like that that would be beneficial to the community. And we feel that that would be a really great service to add to the community garden, especially with 2 acres and more. So we're suggesting that that be allowed. One thing I forgot to mention too is right now we only allow lots that are 66 feet or larger to have community gardens, and a lot of neighborhoods aren't going to have vacant lots that are that big, so we're suggesting 50 feet. There are a couple things that weren't clear in the information too that I want to call out. 125137, we added outdoor storage. Right now, in a very convoluted way, our code allows for outdoor storage, but it doesn't really speak to anything other than it has to be fenced in. Staff has recommended that that be a concealment fence. Most recent applicants who have done concealment or have done outdoor storage with fencing have automatically added our suggestion that it be a concealment. So we think that it should be added to the code that any outdoor storage that we allow should be a concealment type fence. And we do require in the fencing code that it be fenced, but it's not clear what type of fencing. So, and all the ones that I'm aware of in the community automatically do that, but we just thought it would make sense to have it clear in the code that it should be of a concealment type. So it's a change, but it's not really a change of how people have done things around the community. The other change that was made that is substantive is the medical marijuana section of the code under 1251.29 as modified. We presented to City Commission a couple months ago medical marijuana processes and some of the things that are coming up as an issue with the process. And one of the things that the City Commission wanted us to bring forward for change was for the medical and adult use marijuana processing facilities. Now we require that they be 1,000 feet from residential, libraries, schools, and all of these uses that you're used to. We've had a situation where we feel that the setback from residential districts would be better reduced to 500 feet, and that's what City Commission is recommending, that we amend the code to have that language. One of the things that we caught just before this meeting is the list of items that are allowed to be 1,000 or have to be 1,000 feet away also include housing and under E, parent E, and that should have been struck. So we would request that you make a recommendation with the modification that that be struck.
So on the handout that we are provided for this evening, page 14 of 25, there are two E's. There are several E's.
Small E, I'm sorry, and if you
So
look
can you
at.
be specific?
Yeah, it would be the .29.
So which one is it?
If you look at 1251.29, the new 29, it was under 28.
The new 29, okay.
Yes.
So that's
Look under
halfway down,
that.
okay.
There should be, underneath that language, there should be an A through E. And the E should refer to residential uses.
Any residential R-zone property.
Correct.
So you're saying that
And-
should be stricken?
That should be stricken because
Okay.
in the proposed language, we're requesting that the residential be reduced to 500, but the remaining be 1,000.
Okay, I
So
see.
if we kept that in, it would kind of negate, it would confuse things because we're saying two different things.
I see. So 1251.2, the new 9, that first sentence there talks about what you're proposing. So
right.
that's why you're striking it from the
Yes.
section. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. And it just wasn't included in what was presented to us
Right.
tonight. Okay, thank you. Was there any additional to your report that you wanted to give? Is that it?
That's it on
On that.
on that one,
On that.
correct.
All right, Commissioner Springer?
I have a question. So we're going to allow medical marijuana within 500 feet of residential properties.
It would be a processing facility. Yes,
Processing
that was the
facility.
request by City Commission.
But 1,000 feet away from properties.
That are below, A through D.
Right, A through
A through D.
D. Thank you.
So is it, if I'm correct, it's 1,000 away from A through D, but 500 away from residential.
That is correct.
And that's what the amendment on that section is saying.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions about that, Commissioner Springer?
No,
Okay.
thank you.
Marcel?
May I ask a question of Ms. Schmidt?
Sure, please.
Did you discuss the revisions to 1251.41, the private gardens, deleting B2?
I'm sorry, deleting,
Little b, friends 2. Did you discuss that already?
no. That is being proposed to be deleted because currently we do not allow, so we've got conflicting language.
May I interrupt?
Sure.
Because 1241 just got put back in front of us, right?
Oh,
Yes.
I jumped back up.
Okay, so.
That's all right.
Can we?
We'll talk
can we
about
get-
that, yep.
No,
Can we pick up that question?
It's 1251.41.
So 1251, okay.
.41.
0.41, okay, thank you. Thank you. So let me go to that.
And that would be
1251.
page,
0.41, page 18
or
Yes.
191 of the PDF, 18 of that.
of 25, okay. And so, your question again, now that we're where you are?
I just wanted to make sure that Ms. Schmidt mentioned that to you. I wanted to make sure that that had been mentioned to you for your awareness in reviewing this section, or this chapter of the ordinance.
Okay, thank you. And so, if you want to continue, Susan, go right ahead. Your,
Yes, so,
Being on
so
that particular
1251, the area that we are talking about, from private gardens, right now, it states that it talks about a accessory dwelling. In our previous modification, we changed that because that should have been removed quite some time ago. We do not allow, generally allow accessory buildings on vacant properties, because what happens is if we allow them on vacant properties, and that property may be part of another residential property, but it's not combined physically, if it gets sold, all of a sudden you have a property that just has an accessory structure. And it creates an issue with people that purchase it that want to use it for storage of whatever, and the yard becomes a nuisance because things are being stored there and people aren't living there. So we have a lot of issues with violations and notices that come from that type of situation. So it has been treated in the past that no vacant property generally, especially for like a private garden, can have a accessory structure. And so that was removed from the language.
so if I'm hearing you correctly, what was being pointed out was around 1251.41,
Correct.
and it was B,
B,
and
and that was eliminated.
B2 was being struck. And that does appear on our
Yes.
copy, okay.
Yes.
All right, any questions about that or anything else under 1251?
I do.
Yes, Commissioner Hughes.
Regarding the 2-acre limitation, there's not going to be an issue if it's multiple parcels versus one parcel, is there?
You would have to combine the properties, yes.
So you would have to go through the process to combine them to get 2 acres?
Correct.
Okay. Is there a current precedent in like neighboring communities with 2 acres, or?
No, there's not. We are looking at basically the example we have of a 2-acre that would have
With
uses like that.
Sunlight Gardens being?
Yeah, and they're a little over 2 acres. So, which is probably going to be a pretty unique situation. And if we had smaller lots, the parking and accessory structures and things like that could become a nuisance. So with a property 2 acres or more, we feel confident having the visual and the situation that is existing, that would be a good threshold. Because I couldn't find any situation where they actually even allow it for anything. That was a good question.
And then is it, just as I'm thinking through this, is there any, it's in any district, correct?
Right.
Or is it limited?
Any residential district,
Any R district?
any R district can have a community garden.
Okay.
And those in an R district that are more than 2 acres can have these additional opportunities in a community garden.
Any other questions on 1251, Chapter 1251? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve with that additional clarification under 1251.29. Can you state your motion, please? It's more than just making a motion.
Oh, I
Yes.
misunderstood you. Go ahead.
No, I mean, you have to state it, not me. You go ahead and state your motion in full.
I'll go ahead.
Yes. Go ahead. Anybody want to make that motion?
I'll make a motion to approve Chapter 1251.
Support.
It needs the correction of eliminating,
As presented, yes.
okay, thank you. It's been moved by Commissioner O'Donnell and supported by Commissioner Godfrey to approve Chapter 1251 with the correction to 1251.29, removing E, and as presented otherwise. Is there any additional questions or comments? All right, hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
And we will go back to Chapter 1241, now that you have your copies in front of you. Sorry about that.
Did everybody
Yes.
get one? Because I've got it.
So this.
Yeah, I got two of them
I
as
got
well.
two.
Anybody-
Oh, I did too.
Okay,
I got two.
There's
we all got two, okay.
one from our
Yep, so the one that you have on top is your red line copy, so that shows all the
Okay.
edits that were made, and
I
then you
got
got to
you.
clean.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you. So 1241 had been moved by Commissioner Morris and supported by Commissioner Godfrey. So I think we're at discussion because she had presented already. Is there any questions or? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve as presented. Oh, I'm sorry. Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. 1241 has been approved. Now we're moving on to 1260.
And 1260 is the same, these are all typographical clarification. Under what I'd like to call to your attention under section, or under this section, and it would be,
Could you please speak into the microphone?
sure, I'm sorry about that. Under accessory buildings and uses, there are some deletions that were under small a 2. It says an accessory building may be erected in the side or rear yard or secondary front yard as regulated herein. The two A and B that are deleted, these should have been deleted with the last amendments that we brought forward, where we changed the accessory structure. And what they're saying is basically, in the two deletions, contradict the ability to have a shed or accessory structure in a secondary side yard. And what that secondary side yard is, we have a lot of residents that have a lot that's 2 lots wide. And under the previous code, they could not have a shed in that side yard, even though it may be 30, 40, 50 feet from the road. So we retitled those as secondary side yards, and we allow them to be, if they're secondary side yards, they can be built 25 feet from the property line at the first supporting member of from the first supporting member of the House. So that allows something that these two, A and B, would not allow anymore. And in reading them as staff, when we first looked at them, we were not understanding why there would be a difference of whether a accessory structure could be located in a certain area based on whether the garage was attached or unattached. So that was something that we intended to strike from the code. And again, if we left it in, it would contradict the secondary side yard where we could actually allow people to have sheds that are reasonably set back from the street, but still in the side yard, or what we used to call a front yard.
So,
I know that's very confusing, but.
yeah, just because you left the secondary front yard language in here, you're not.
Yeah, and that
it-
is supposed to be in here.
Yet you're saying secondary side yard.
Right, but if we leave A and B the way it's written, that's not going to make sense for the secondary side or yard. And this is speaking to looking at them differently, whether they have a attached garage or a detached
Oh,
garage.
yeah.
And it doesn't, we're
Right.
confused as what that difference would be and why we're
Yep.
differentiating. So
Okay,
we recommend that be deleted to
okay. Thank
not
you.
be
I get it now.
contradictory.
Thank you. Anything else to that section that you want to point out, 1260? Oh, is there anything else you'd like to point out regarding that chapter?
That is it on that one.
All right, are there any questions from commissioners on 1260? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve 1260 as presented.
I make a motion to approve the chapter 1260 as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Hughes and seconded by Commissioner Morris to approve Chapter 1260 as presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carried unanimously. Moving on to our next chapter, 1261, when you're ready.
1261 is completely adding language that needed to be added to clarify planning and zoning administrator and what they can allow their designee to do. There's no changes that would change the way a site plan is reviewed and approved or denied.
All right, are there any questions from the commissioners? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve Chapter 1261 as presented.
Madam Chairman, I make a motion that Chapter 1261 be approved as presented.
Support.
It's been, who supported that?
I did.
Okay. It's been moved by Commissioner Godfrey, supported by Commissioner Springer. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to Chapter 1263.
Thank you. 1263 is a change to our sign code
I'm missing
having to do with,
Can we just pause one more time?
We're missing that chapter.
That chapter is missing as
We
well.
go right to 1281.
can you, that, I am so sorry about this. We'll go on to chapter 1281.
All right.
All right. So 1281, the administrative procedures, we have mostly, or all or clarifications similar to, we had section numbers in this section that did not match up to what is currently in the code, so those were modified. We also had some missing words, so this was all completely corrective in nature. There are no changes that would change the way the city is required or doing business. Are there any of the corrections in this section that you might have questions on?
Any questions from commissioners on 1281? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion, approve.
It's been moved to approve Chapter 1281 as presented. Is there a support? Do we have to wait for our commissioner to return? No? Okay. It's been supported by Commissioner Godfrey, moved by Commissioner Morris. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously.
And the last one that Travis will bring you copies in shortly, we added a clarification about directional signs, what directional signs. We added a clarification about directional signs. Currently, we do not speak to them in the code. We have just looked at them as not being signage that would require a sign permit. So we added language in the code that says directional sign means an on-premise sign containing non-commercial message, including but not limited to designation of restrooms, telephone locations, restriction on smoking, and door openings. Directional sign also means a sign containing non-commercial messages for, but not limited to, private traffic control and parking signs. It often comes up as a question from those that are submitting projects, whether the directional type signs are included in the maximum square footage of what they're allowed. So even though we have not ever required that, we wanted to make sure we had something in the code that clearly stated that, so there was no confusion for people that were working on development projects. So that was one of the changes we made.
Can you give an example of that?
Yes, for instance, we often see there's parking in the back, there'll be a sign on the side of the building that directs you to the parking.
Okay.
Or if there is a one-way direction down a aisle, it'll show things like that. It can show something as like speed limit, things like that for cut through. It can label, like it said, a bathroom. If there's a bathroom on the outside of the building that is for the public, it can label that. Anything that is not saying, advertising the business, or a menu type situation, any of those type signs.
That's helpful, thank you.
And then the other change that we made are to freestanding signs.
Pardon?
Right now, our sign code requires that freestanding signs be set back 10 feet from the property line. And this is problematic to some properties because in certain areas of the city, we have very large right-of-ways. So their property lines could be set back quite a ways from the actual street edge. So it makes their sign less visible than someone who would have a property line that comes closer to the street edge. So it reduces that number, and then it adds a clarification that, but under no circumstances that it can be closer than 10 feet to the edge of the road. So it evens out the playing field for signs of that type. We've seen it as an issue quite often, especially lately, and it would require a variance to be able to set it further forward, and it would be cumbersome to the zoning board of appeal for something that makes sense to recommend changes.
So I do have a or a question on that.
Sure.
So it used to be that the signs were measured from the edge of the right-of-way back
Yes,
from the right-of-way? So now we're actually allowing them to be closer to the road, which makes it 10 feet off the curb? Is that what we're?
right. Well, right away, property line, they're kind of one and the same, because if it's at the property line, the other side would be the right-of-way. So sometimes the right-of-way, we don't allow them, we require them to be set back from the property line or the right-of-way. But under circumstances where the right-of-way is larger, we allow them 5 extra feet. So they can be set back 5 feet from the property line, as long as that property line isn't less than 10 feet from the edge of the road, which is going to occur in some situations, but rarely. Usually if you set back the sign 10 feet, it could be 20 feet from the from the road edge, or it could be 50 feet from the road
Yeah,
edges. So
I
it's,
can kind of understand what you're saying. 'Cause
Yeah.
That's part of my business is that most right-of-ways are 33 feet from the center of the road. Some are larger.
right.
And, yeah, be back further. I'm just trying to figure out, are we measuring it from the curb or still the 33 feet? That's what
We're still measuring it from the property line, so we're really only reducing it 5 feet. So it's going to help some people tremendously, and other people it's not really going to help, but it has to be on their property line.
It used to be 10 feet from, say the right-of-way was 33 feet, so you're looking at 43 feet from the center of the road.
Right,
Where you could put your sign, now we've reduced it 5 feet. That's
right,
Okay.
that's correct.
perfect.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Anything else to the report?
No, that is concluding that chapter.
Any questions from the commissioners?
One more thing, that would include all signs like for sale signs for houses?
That would
Or is that
include,
different section?
yeah, that would only include the
Just business.
freestanding signs, but
Commissioners,
yes, if
you get
that's a
closer to the-
freestanding sign, that would, go ahead.
Yeah, so temporary signs, so like a for sale sign, I think, it looks like, I think those are only 3 feet from the right of way. So this will apply to freestanding signs, so they're going to be larger permanent signage that,
Okay.
yeah, that normally would have had to have been 10 feet back. We're reducing it by 5 feet for them, so.
Get closer to the mic, please. Yes, Commissioner Godfrey.
Do you address political signs?
No, the changes that we made do not address that, but you can have a political sign in your yard, you just can't have it in the right of way.
Yeah, and that's violated every day of the week.
Right, we do try to occasionally drive around and take care of those and let people know, but it's going to probably be an ongoing thing, so we do try to police it as much as we can.
Any additional questions? Yes,
Just wanna say,
Commissioner O'Donnell.
You're talking about political signs that are inside the right-of-way, not, because I'm just saying that I know the First Amendment law changed where you can put it in your yard
You can
65 now.
You can put them in your yard, and that's no issue. The only time that we go around and take them is if they're in the right-of-way.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve Chapter 1263 as presented.
Make a motion.
It's been moved by Commissioner Morris.
Or,
It's been supported by Commissioner Springer. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay. Sometimes if I'm not looking that way, it's hard to tell. Sorry about that. To approve Chapter 1263 as presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Commissioner Godfrey?
I would like to compliment staff on the work that was done because it was tedious. And just by the example of what you've explained to us, gives us an idea of the amount of work that went through this to iron these things out. So for the future uses of people within our community and developers and things, your efforts are to be applauded. Thank you.
I'll support that.
Thank you. Well, that ends our public hearing. Moving on to old business.
No old business.
New business is review of our capital improvement plan, fiscal year '24 through fiscal year '30. And certainly that's available online. It's a lot to look through, but I imagine staff will give us some highlights here.
So actually, this item is intended to be pretty brief today. This is just to give the commissioners an opportunity, if there's anything that as you reviewed it last year, or if you've re-reviewed it in this packet, and you've got any suggestions or anything that you see in there that you'd maybe like to see considered with this coming year's capital improvement program. This just gives us an opportunity to provide some feedback to the various departments then, as they're right now in the process of putting that together. You'll have the new plan before you, I believe, in December, again, of this year for the coming fiscal year. But this just gives a kind of a kickoff opportunity to take any suggestions that any of you might have.
Thank you. I'll ask commissioners if they have any feedback to offer the staff or the various departments at this time. Hearing none, it looks like we are good on 8A. That moves us to our next agenda item, comments by the public. Our public has left. That hurts. Moving to our next agenda item, comments by the staff and commission members. So I'll start with staff. Are there any additional comments?
I do have a few updates that I wanted to let you know about. Our former planning and zoning administrator, Susan Cronander, has taken a job in Kansas City to be closer to her son, so we're very happy for her. We have since promoted Travis Sullivan, so he is our new planning and zoning administrator, and we are looking for a planner to replace his position. So we're very excited for Susan and very happy to promote Travis. I wanted to let you know that I do have some training that I have just recently signed up for the Planning Commission. We have chosen to have this done in a way that there is a YouTube video of the training that you will have access anytime you'd like to do it at your leisure. It will also come with a written packet to back up the training. And once everyone has had an opportunity to complete it, I would love to have a work session just to talk about those that training material and any questions that you may have. Planning is a big topic, and there's going to be a lot of stuff coming your way soon. We are hoping to start working more on evaluating our current residential districts, just to see what they do and why they do what they do. So kind of break it down into what does the setback mean to development? What do the ground coverage mean to development? Do these requirements still make sense? Are there areas of the community where these requirements should be changed to be more conducive to housing development? So we're hoping in the next month or so we'll get more information out to you. I would like to have a general work session on housing in general to discuss some of the topics that we'll be looking at, and then we would be in the beginning of the next year, we would be hopeful that we would have time to start a subcommittee that would include three planning commissioner members. The meetings would all be during working hours, so it would be hopefully housing commission members, members of nonprofit housing organizations, anyone that we can start brainstorming. Do we need changes? If so, what are they? So we can come up with a plan to take to the community and all the neighborhoods and see what their thoughts are. This process will take several months, and we're hoping that it will give us a good direction. So then when we do continue to get more housing development requests, that we're at least ready and we know the answers to the questions about whether these ordinances should be changed or not. So that will be coming soon. Also wanted to let you know, we did get a planned unit development application. The first phase will just be preliminary, and that will be reviewed by staff. Once the developer makes the amendments needed, then it'll come to Planning Commission. But it is a development that includes 29 two-unit homes for senior housing. The units total will be 58 units. It will include a clubhouse, continuous sidewalks around the whole development, a play area, and that is going to be probably coming to you in the next month or two. So just wanted to let you know that that will be coming. And that's all I have.
Thanks for the heads
you.
up. Any other staff? I did want to ask a question regarding the kind of work session that was requested for the non-motorized plan. Was within 3 months. Can you give us like a progress report on where that is?
Yes, I will be sending out an email by the end of this week. We are doing that prior to the November meeting. We did state that it could be at the November meeting if there was time to do that, not a full agenda. So the email that I hope to send out was basically requesting what information you would like before the meeting, and if we could set up another date before the November meeting as a backup if we see that there's going to be a lot on the agenda. So I'll be sending that out this week for your input. So far, the things that I intend to have made is larger plans showing, right now, I think in the plan, one of the things that I noticed is because the plan in the document is so small and it's including all of the existing and proposed, it's really difficult to read. So since we have time, I'm going to propose adding individual maps for each one of those along with one that's combined so that it's easier to read. And I think that would be a good change to the plan.
Helpful, thank you. Commissioner Godfrey.
Will you send out notifications to us when the training that you mentioned is available and how we
Yes.
sign up for it and that?
Yes, I anticipate having it this week yet. Basically, the planning.org will send me a link to these trainings, and then they will mail me copies of the hard copies. So I will be getting all those out to you when I get them. But we will get the link by this week, I believe. So, all right? Yep.
Thank you. Are there any other commissioner comments? Then we are, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and supported to adjourn our meeting. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? All right, the motion carries. We are adjourned at